A Privacy Guide, Be Invisible, Hidden or Non-Existent. Chapter 1. Privacy Essays. Privacy 1. There are no secrets anymore. Guy in the movie Rat Race. 3 may keep a secret if 2 are dead. Benjamin Franklin. People say they want privacy, but it's not a high priority. They would rather have good jobs and a comfortable lifestyle. Most Americans are ambivalent about privacy and the information gathering going on in databases behind their backs unseen unless they become the target for federal government arrest, usually on tax evasion charges. For most of us, the privacy intrusion leads to minor hassles. Credit reports follow us everywhere, we get telemarketing and direct mail sales solicitations, and occasionally, a few of us get our identities stolen. Most people don't care about most of this stuff as long as they got a good job and good tasting foods, but some do. Privacy is tied into freedom. There are still individuals among us who don't particularly want to be part of the system, to know that their entire financial, medical and educational histories can be accessible to anyone simply by going to a few computer databases. There's just something wrong in the stench of knowing that your entire life history is on a few records somewhere and somebody can access it in a snap if they want. To me, it smacks of dictatorship, or at least a minimization of my freedom as an individual. The American government wants a universal identification card. They already have facial recognition technology that scan the streets looking to match faces with known wanted criminals. Satellite imaging, the ability to do visual surveillance from a satellite in space, is pretty good. They can read license plates with it. They say if you don't have anything to fear, ignore it. It won't hurt you, but to a guy like me, I want to feel that I own my life. I don't want to feel that I'm on some database somewhere and the feds can haul me in whenever they want and know everything I've ever done. I read somewhere where somebody said I want the right to be forgotten, the right to not exist on any database, to have all personal records on them destroyed shortly after the business transaction is completed. I agree with this sentiment. I want to be free from being on a database anywhere. Most of us have some skeletons in our closet, but some of us want to shed them, start new lives fresh, but we can't if records from our past are always following us. In a supposedly free country, unless you're committing a crime, you should be free to do what you want without having to provide a social security number for everything you do, such that the government and others can compile records on all the citizens out there. It smacks of the Big Brother concept from the Orwellian novel 1984. I own my own life, that's the way I want to keep it. I don't trust the government. I have seen them destroy people on tax evasion and other charges that, in my opinion, were unjust. I, like a lot of other people, just don't particularly want to be part of the system, to know that the feds can come busting in on me whenever they want because they think I owe Uncle Sam some tax money. In Ayn Rand's novel The Fountainhead, the protagonist Rourke, if I remember his name correctly, felt he was entitled to own his own life free and clear. Nobody else was entitled to a piece of it unless he first gave them permission. This includes the government compiling information on you, credit reporting agencies keeping tabs on your spending habits, your medical records being shared by invisible people behind the scenes, your driving record, employment record, etc. Some of us simply want one free frontier left where an individual can live day by day in the moment without being shadowed by all this stuff. Your life history should be nobody else's ownership but yours. There's no privacy on the telephone with caller ID, phone records, and all the other technology. Cell phones can be monitored with scanners and everything you do on the internet can be easily tracked. All this might be fine if everything was accurate, but credit reports are notorious for being wrong, thereby screwing up the lives of thousands of people all the time. I pretty well don't believe anyone. They say medical and other records are confidential, but the feds and any smart pie or hacker can get any records on you he wants. Deep inside, I simply feel that my life is mine. It's not for sale as fodder in databases, nor to be exploited in the media as a titillating story if I or anyone happens to do anything that some journalists want to exploit. My pact with life is between me and my creator, no one else. I don't care about the world system, pop culture entertainment or tabloid journalism. I want to be free from all of it and own my own life such that when I die, nobody will have gotten a piece of me that I didn't want them to. I will be perfectly happy to die alone, unscathed and untouched by the world system. It's about me and my integrity with my own life. That's all I care about. This is why I'm so concerned about my personal privacy in the world. I enjoy using mind-altering recreational substances. Even though it's considered illegal according to laws some people enacted somewhere, I'm not infringing on anyone else's rights in the process, so it's my business and my right as a free being in the universe to do as I please. This is why I don't want to be part of the system. Who are they to tell me what I can or can't do in my own time if I'm not hurting anyone else in the process? Who are they to tell me to give them a urine sample for a job as a teacher? What's next? The Gestapo round UPS of all the undesirables and free-thinking intellectuals? I want to feel that I can go anywhere and it's a new frontier to me. Some cop, nosy neighbor, or bureaucrat is not poking his nose into a computer database to dig up what he can on me just because he feels like it, not because I've done anything wrong. Is that too much to ask for? In the old days, you had the Wild West or Shanghai, China. You didn't even need a passport. You just went and created your life day by day. Where is that left in the world today? This is what guys like me hate. I just want to go somewhere and not have to deal with bureaucracies and idiotic paperwork. Where is the freedom left in the world? It's really funny that the supposed land of the free has its bureaucratic hooks and databases into everybody, not to mention wiretaps, hidden cameras, etc. We all say we value the idea of the rugged individualist, but everywhere I look I see that we've been cut up, dissected and put into chains metaphorically one way or another. Privacy 2. No one should be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Article 12, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Privacy is a philosophical issue as it relates to freedom. In a supposedly free country, we should have the right to be left alone and not tampered with if we so desire. So the question is, how far does your right to privacy go versus how far can the government go in snooping on you in order to protect the nation from drug dealers and terrorists, or how far marketers, credit reporting agencies and insurance companies can go in snooping on you to serve their ends. Generally speaking, there are 7 areas of privacy. 1. The individual's sense of privacy to conduct a normal life without having his identity stolen or cameras tracking him wherever he goes. How about what I believe as my right to do cocaine in the privacy of my home and hire a hooker to come to my home if I want without worrying about some cop lurking in the shadows trying to bust me for a victimless so-called crime? Why should the cops want to spend billions to keep a gun registry when it should a reasonable expectation that every individual own a gun for home security? Besides, the crooks won't sign up for it anyway. That's the least of their scheming. 2. The privacy of our personal information that is used in records like medical records, criminal records, employment records, credit card records of all our retail purchases, video rentals, magazine subscriptions, etc. A lot of this information is currently sold as mailing lists for business purposes. Government law enforcement agencies are building up databases of all citizens in order to have an instant profile all the way from medical records to video rental and library book rentals to credit reports and even credit card purchases. They target people who have committed no crimes but are political activists or support left-wing causes. There are also commercial database compilers who sell these database records of individuals to people for a number of reasons, such as an employer checking out an employee or a potential new employee, a business person checking out someone he is doing with, a person checking out a lover, a bank checking out someone applying for a mortgage, and the list goes on. The fact is that just about anybody can get a bunch of records on just about anyone if they have money and go through a private investigator, because pies have more rights to this info than the average citizen. But even still, it's relatively easy to buy records on people over the internet as long as you got a credit card number that spits out cash. If there are errors on these database records, as there often are since people with similar names often get the records of the other guy tacked in with their records, this has a devastating effect on some people. One management type wondered why he never got hired even after 100 or so interviews, so he did a records check on himself and found out somebody else's sexual offender conviction came up as his simply because they had a similar name. 3. How much rights do we have to not be bothered by the cops versus their right to hassle us based on reasonable suspicion or even no suspicion, just because they feel like it? What about mass searches at schools? If you're minding your own business in public, the cops have no legal reason to stop you or detain you. 4. How far can the press go in reporting our private lives? Can anyone take a picture and plaster it all over magazines and even commercial packaging, such as a girl on a beach was photographed and her image appeared on the cover of a softcore porn tape about nudity in public places? There are court cases setting precedents all the time, giving people judgments for being intruded upon by the press. 5. Privacy in the workplace. Does your boss have a right to know that you do cocaine and frequent gay bars in your off time? What about installing hidden cameras and spy software? Can an employer force you take a psychological, generic, and urine test? Basically, the rule is that on company time, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy. The employer can install surveillance cameras and spy software. It's his workplace. You're expected to work. Unless it's a high security, sensitive job, what you do on your own time is your business. 6. How far can you go before you're infringing on somebody else's right to privacy? In the past, you could buy a mail order scanner and listen in on people's phone calls. Voyeurs would look into windows, and even if they were caught, they weren't arrested because it was considered innocuous. There weren't even laws until a few years ago about filming people in bathrooms, tanning salons, etc. But nowadays, with all the paranoia around, be wary of snooping on others. Besides, there's plenty of stuff on the internet if you want to peek into others' personal lives, like blogs where people put their lives' diaries up for all to see or film themselves having sex for all to see. 7. The great philosophical issues. Can the government outlaw our rights to take our own lives, our rights to get an abortion? When is the embryo a true human being? Drug testing at work, the right to keep a disease like AIDS private, etc. These issues will probably never be resolved. Some people will always vehemently support one side while some will take the other side with equal vim and vigor. Most of us have long ago compromised our rights to a free and private life without realizing it, simply by standing by idly as the government chips away at them little by little. The best solution is to be aware of what's going on around you and stay as private as you can. Don't be high profile. Don't disclose information that's not necessary for the other party to know. There's no reason a dentist has to know your SSN or even your address if you're paying cash. The best way to avoid trouble anywhere is to be inconspicuous. Don't make a spectacle of yourself. Don't dress up. Don't complain. If you do illegal things, be as discreet as you can about them. Avoid the authorities. Don't go to the cops unless it's a very serious affair. The golden rule of privacy is to trust almost no one but yourself. Spurned lovers, spouses, friends, and even lawyers have a way of spilling your secrets if they feel slighted, as most people in any relationship do from time to time. If a buddy gets arrested by the heat and decides he can make a deal by turning you in for something, you're sunk. Beyond that, just about everybody has a price, even lawyers and your relatives. They will give you up for a price, so if you don't tell secrets or trust anyone other than a few people you feel have scruples, you should be all right. If you show off any material wealth, you're asking to be robbed and possibly killed. Don't trust people with your bragging about how you got away with something, like the guy who bragged that he beat alimony and child support until he blabbed to the wrong guy who turned him in. You never know when circumstances will change and you will need to disappear for your own good. Anybody can very easily get into a criminal, legal, financial, substance abuse or personal bind, often innocently, being the victim of somebody else's delusion or mistake. Unless you think these things never happen, open your eyes, see all the wrongful convictions out there, all the money and marital problems, all the friendships and business partnerships gone bad, cases of identity theft which make a mess of a person's life and there's nobody to help him or her put it back together but themselves. The authorities nowadays can easily access all your telephone records, financial records, a list of all tangible assets, email, and internet traffic and anything else they can find on your hard drive that was supposedly deleted but is still there if they want to. There is an operation run by the National Security Agency called Echelon that has the ability to snoop on all transmissions across borders including telephone calls, emails, faxes, telexes, and radio transmissions. The FBI has a similar system called DCS-1000 or Carnivore, a type of software that watches electronic transmissions for keywords they think a criminal or terrorist would use. Look them up in search engines. Think of how a private investigator, FBI agent, or your angry ex-husband would try to track you down. The first way would be a massive computer search looking for everywhere that your social security number shows up, so the logical thing to do is to use it minimally. Don't give it out just because people ask for it. Get your home, utility bills, telephone, and vehicle in an alternate name, preferably. Start a limited liability corporation/LLC and put them all in that name. Don't give an address out to too many places or give a fake address or postal box, particularly for the phone book. Separate your name from the address where you live if you want privacy. Use a postal box, a fake address, a pseudo-address, anything but if you want privacy. No one must have an easy way to find out where you live, such as simply typing your name into an internet telephone directory or looking it up in public domain records such as utility companies. Have a shredding machine or a wood stove and dispose of all sensitive papers. There are specialists on the market who put shredded papers back together. Burning is the best solution. Get a post office box and get all your mail sent there or get it sent to your work. Commercial mail receiving agencies/CMRAs like mailboxes, etc. are the best because you get a street address as opposed to a postal box. You can have mail forwarded to you and UPS and FedEx deliver to them. The best option is to get a friend to receive your mail or hire a professional mail forwarding service to receive your mail and forward it to you. You can find them in the yellow pages of the phone book under mail forwarding. To disappear postal-wise, a simple way to do it is to get mail forwarding service from one of the franchise mail administration companies like MBE.com or Postnet.net, then file a permanent change of address form with the U.S. Post Office. Another idea for privacy is to get whatever mail you can, like magazine subscriptions and mail orders, sent to you in either a pseudonym or the name of a fictitious company you make up. Cancel your newspaper subscription. 2 weeks from now start it up under another name. Don't open your door for people you don't know. Don't invite people into your home you don't know too well. Identity theft this way is rampant. Be around when repair people come into your house. They are notorious thieves. Be wary of what you put in the trash. Be wary of babysitters, especially young ones who bring their thieving boyfriends in on the sly. Give out your home address and SSN as minimally as possible. According to the Privacy Act of 1974, PL 93-579, any federal, state, or local government agency that requests your social security number must tell you 4 things. 1. Whether disclosure of your SSN is required or optional. 2. What statute or other authority requires this number. 3. How they will use your SSN, once they have it. 4. What will happen to you if you do not provide them with your SSN. This includes universities that accept federal funds. If you're asked for your SSN from one of these agencies, look for the Privacy Act statement. If it's not there, there's something wrong. If a private agency asks you for your SSN, you are under no obligation to give out. I recently saw a line for my SSN at the dentist's office. I didn't fill it in. Nobody questioned it, but if they did, I would tell them, what did dental work have to do with dentistry? I guess they want it to a credit check if you skip or something like that. According to Section 656 of Public Law 104-208, passed in 1996, Federal agencies may not accept for identification purpose a state-issued driver's license unless the license contains a social security number that can be read visually or by electronic means. So if you plan to use your license as an ID, you should give them your SSN at the time of issue. If you work for anyone, you have to furnish an SSN for tax purposes unless you're working under the table, so to speak. If you get any government benefits including Medicare, expect to furnish your SSN. If you want medical bills kept quiet like a mental health problem or an STD, pay in cash and use a fake name. Privacy 3. The U.S. Constitution grants its citizens certain rights like freedom of expression, limits on searches and questioning people suspected of crimes. You have constitutional protections from the invasion of privacy into your personal life. If you want privacy for whatever reason, you have to do your part. You can't be a left-wing pinko activist or a celebrity flaunting your wealth. All these pop culture entertainers try to say these photographers shouldn't photograph them and follow them around, but they're a bunch of hypocrites. They asked for it. They wanted to be rich and famous. If they didn't want it, they should have chosen another line of work. The best way to keep your privacy is to outwardly be a quiet conformist who pays his bills and does nothing to arouse suspicion from government officials or other bureaucrats. Don't be an antisocial person with no trespassing signs all over your property. Appear nice and assuming to people. If anybody asks what you do, you can always say you write magazine articles or design websites. Many people are worried that the government has big supercomputers monitoring all of the phone calls, faxes, and emails in the United States. The theory is that it's impossible to monitor by manual labor, so they code in certain hot keywords like you would do if you were doing a search through a search engine on the internet. The theory goes that they key in such terms as jihad, bomb, explosive, marijuana, coke, offshore account, launder, etc. And whenever the computer hears one of these hot terms being used, it spits that communique out to be further analyzed by human agents. The problem with this is that these terms will be used many times innocently by innocent people. Secondly, the number of hits these alleged supercomputers make in one day is enough to keep government agents busy investigating for months. Certainly be wary of your communiques, because if you are ever targeted for something, there is a record of all your faxes and emails on some computer owned by your ISP or fax company. But overall, don't be paranoid about this supercomputer eavesdropping computer. Thus far, nobody has proved or disproved its existence in the mainstream media. The idea of it is a good deterrent to the general public and would-be terrorists. Don't be paranoid about not using your SSN. Use it for ordinary situations like opening a bank account or getting a driver's license, and otherwise shut up. Don't join left-wing groups under your real name. Even if the National Rifle Association has 4 million members, membership by itself will not make you a person worthy of suspicion, but you can bet that some government organization has a list of these names. If they are investigating someone like you, they will go to their super database, plug your name in and see all the hits that come back. If they see that you're a member of the NRA, subscribe to High Times magazines, haven't filed taxes for a number of years, arrest for civil disobedience, registered owner of a handgun, all these minor red flags combined add up enough for someone to say this person looks a little suspicious, let's check him out. If you're on the run, this could be one way to find you. If you're a member of the Scrabble Association, or subscribe to Outdoor Magazine and they see a change of address on your name on their lists in their super database, they will know where to find you. If you become too eccentric in trying to get privacy, you get extra attention for being so eccentric. There was a guy where I used to live who used to walk around the streets wearing a motorcycle helmet. I tried to talk to him a few times, but he ignored me. His desire for privacy led him to stand out like a sore thumb. Overall, you want to leave as little a paper trail as possible for everything you do. Use cash as much as possible. Hide most of your money in accounts outside of your home country. Pay for local purchases with cash, rather than by check or credit card if you don't want some crook getting your details or getting on a bunch of mailing lists. Ask manufacturers, catalog or magazine subscription companies, charities and others with whom you do business not to sell your name to others for marketing purposes. Don't release your social security number except to an employer, government agency, lender, or credit bureau that requires it to identify you. Don't give anyone your credit card or checking account numbers unless you're making purchases with them, and don't put credit card numbers on your checks. When filling out warranty or other information cards, don't include optional or unnecessary personal information. Many states have their own privacy laws concerning telemarketing, employment, the use of social security, credit card or checking account numbers, medical records, mailing lists, credit reports, debt collection, computerized communications, insurance records and public data banks. Check with your state or local consumer agency about specific privacy rights or a referral to the appropriate agency. Landlords seem to want SSNs to do credit checks and check it with databases of bad tenants. You are under no legal obligation to furnish it. The way to get around nosy landlords is offered to pay several months' rent up front in cash. In the US, for the IRS's benefit, the SSN is recorded on all real estate property transactions. As far as I know, mobile homes are not considered real estate. Neither are RVs or travel trailers. One guy bought an RV, put the ownership in a business name, either rented some land in an RV or mobile home park and moved whenever he felt like it. Using a false social security number to obtain a driver's license is illegal, but there doesn't seem to be any other laws on the books for using a wrong number as long as there is no intent to deceive a government agency or commit fraud. 42 U.S. Code 408, also U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, Case 94-5721. If the cops stop you, they're easily hooked into a social security database. If you give a false one, it won't match the name it comes back with unless you're using somebody else's and have their name down cold, but then that's identity theft. In order to avoid hassles, either give your real SSN or tell the cop you're under no legal obligation to furnish him with your SSN, but you might anger him enough such that he takes you in for fingerprinting to identify you. In order to avoid theft of your SSN, commit it to memory. Don't carry the card around in a wallet or purse. Use cash instead of credit as much as possible. A lot of people create a limited liability corporation/LLC and conduct their personal affairs through that entity. When you are going away on vacation, don't tell anyone. One woman blabbed to the bank teller who told her buddy who robbed the house. A newspaper boy got a message to suspend newspaper delivery for 2 weeks, so he put 2 and 2 together and robbed the place. Get a friend to pick your newspapers up rather than temporarily cancel the subscription, which someone in that business could use as the signal to rob your house. At the extreme level, you either acquire another identity or simply disappear, which means you don't appear on any records anymore, not even a magazine subscription mailing list. You don't pay income taxes, you work off the books, you don't get business licenses, join clubs or even go to church. If the cops are after you, you're being sued, or somebody wants to kill you, you have to do what's right for you. There are some software systems that government agencies and bill collecting companies where they put an individual's name and SSN on an eternal search list and connect to a variety of public records and other private databases in the case of government agents, which tell these people anytime, anywhere that name and SSN is entered into a database anywhere. It could be that you started a bank account or even joined a gym. If the gym sells your name to a credit card company and they send you a solicitation for a credit card, you can bet that one of main ways to track people down is through credit card company lists. If you want to covertly read other people's mail without opening the envelope, buy Freon gas marketed under different brand names at security and surveillance stores, spray it on an envelope and it makes it transparent until it dries in a minute or so. You can buy prepaid cell phones such as the Track phone, which Walmart sells, and simply buy some prepaid time or a 1-year activation plan, the net result being that you have an untraceable phone as long as you pay for it in cash. Privacy 4. Why doesn't everybody leave everybody else the hell alone? Virtually anyone with intelligence can wiretap your home or your telephone. The government can do this at will. Assume that all phone conversations you have are possibly being recorded, so don't say anything stupid or illegal over the phone. Cell phones are a bit more secure than landlines, but conversations can still be picked up with scanning machines. Cordless phones can be easily scanned. Get a digital phone over the primitive analog ones. They're more secure. If you need privacy for long-distance calls, buy a prepaid long-distance card with cash only, not a credit card, from a corner store, bus station, or even a supermarket, and use it in a phone booth. Try to have an unlisted phone number, but if it is in the phone book, you use the 2 initials of your first names and your last name or mother's maiden name without an address. If somebody calls you and asks right away, "John Smith," you have 2 options. Either ask them what is it about, and when they tell you, tell them you'll pass the message on even if you're John Smith, or say right away, "John is in Jamaica but I can pass a message on." If they refuse to tell you what they're calling about, it's bad news. Don't let your curiosity get the better of you. Don't deal with them. If you have an answering machine, try to not leave a name, just a message like, "Hello, we're not here." Leave a message if you want. Bye. If you get mail you don't want, even if it's addressed to you, like bills, scratch out your address, write on it "deceased" or "moved," no forwarding address, and put it in a mailbox. Many places have personal information that they could share or sell with others, such as supermarkets and big stores with their club memberships. They have a record of what you buy. Trade and professional organizations, schools, and even hotels have a record of what movies you rented on their pay-per-view option. All text messages via cell phones and instant messaging are recorded by the company and kept on file for several years. There are software programs around like Aconix and BeAware by Ascentive that can pull these messages out of the airwaves. If there isn't a van or SUV with tinted windows parked around your home for several days, you or someone nearby could be under surveillance. Bounty hunters, private investigators, and law enforcement people, if they're looking for someone, will often call a relative or friend on a ruse, saying there was an accident and they're trying to verify if Joe Fugitive was involved, or they'll say they have a check or delivery for Joe Fugitive and ask if you can pass it on to him. Often, they'll have an illegal wiretap on the phone, and right after they hang up, they will listen and expect you to call your friend or relative Joe Fugitive, thereby getting the phone number, and from there the address is not too far behind. LoJack, 888-265-6522, lojack.com, is a system which works like radar. A hidden detector can be tracked to find your car if it's stolen, but it only works for a range of about 20 miles or so. If you have this system on your car, it can be turned around to track your movements. Someone can get this put on their car to track their spouse if they suspect he or she is cheating. Payphones in some high-profile areas like airports, bus stations, and high-crime areas are sometimes permanently tapped. They have a computer that listens to the conversations, and if it hears any of their programmed keywords like bomb, smuggle, drugs, Allah, etc., it tells the agents who monitor the recording, and if they feel it needs a follow-up, they often have a home phone number of who the one at the phone booth called. There are devices around at security shops that give a false number on the caller ID of someone you call. Prepaid cell phones are easy to buy at department stores and electronics websites like Amazon.com. Go to electronics, then to prepaid cell. Even though the per-minute charges are quite high, this is your best bet for privacy. If you're really paranoid, pagers are a good way to communicate while being reasonably secure. Scanners blocked for cell phone frequencies is the law in the United States, but not for Canada, so even though a Canadian company will not ship an unblocked scanner to the United States as far as I know, you can easily buy one there and bring it back home with you if you want to listen in on cell phone calls. If you want to find information on people who call you that is more efficient than caller ID, get a toll-free 800 phone number. When anyone calls you, the number goes on your phone record and you just have to look on internet telephone directories to find an address in most cases. Drive a nondescript car, not a luxury or sports car that attracts undue attention to you. Don't get vanity license plates. If you plan to leave on a trip and leave the key with a neighbor, it's almost certain that the neighbor will go into your house and snoop around. Some landlords, apartment managers, and janitors with master keys snoop on the tenants. If you suspect something, change the lock without telling the landlord about it. When you're out in public, if you don't want to attract attention to yourself, look like a reasonably dressed, clean-shaven average Joe or Jane. When dealing with the cops, don't be casual. Be serious. Respect them. After dealing with liars virtually every day, they're pretty good at detecting nervous people who are lying. When dealing with any clerk or bureaucrat, try to be dressed so you look like a successful business person, and your luck is always better with someone of the opposite sex. It's just the way it is, the chemistry, pheromones or something like that. If you're paranoid, legally register your car in 2 states. Get car vehicle plates for 2 states, then when you're meeting people you don't want to know where you live, put the out-of-state ones on temporarily even though the in-state ones have a limited liability company attached to them. Electronic switching system /S has made it possible to tap any phone from a central location, even cell phones. Chapter 2. Privacy Topics. Consumer Privacy. If you want consumer privacy, heed the following advice. Pay for local purchases with cash, rather than by check or credit card. Ask manufacturers, catalog or magazine subscription companies, charities and others with whom you do business not to sell your name to others for marketing purposes. Don't release your social security number except to an employer, government agency, lender, or credit bureau that requires it to identify you. Don't give anyone your credit card or checking account numbers unless you're making purchases with them, and don't put credit card numbers on your checks. When filling out warranty or other information cards, don't include optional or unnecessary personal information. Federal law gives you the right to ask telemarketers to take your name off of their lists and not to call you again. Keep records of their names, addresses, and the dates of your requests. File a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission, FCC.gov, if they don't remove your name from their marketing lists once you have made your request. Personal information is easily obtained by companies promoting sweepstakes, contests, and prize offers. Be careful to check out the companies before deciding to do business with them or releasing personal or financial information. Contact your state or local consumer agency or Better Business Bureau for information about any company. These types of promotions are in the top 10 consumer complaints nationwide. Companies promoting a contest or offering something for free in order to get your name to either send you unsolicited advertising products or sell their mailing list to other businesses. Anonymizer.com, Anonymouse.com, Epic.org, Electronic Privacy Info. Financial Privacy Info. Financial privacy for individuals is about keeping your financial affairs private for 4 major reasons. 1. Avoid the government tax man. If they don't know what you're worth or where your money is, they can't go after it. 2. Avoid identity theft. 3. Avoid people checking up on your net worth in order to determine if you're a worthy target for a lawsuit. 4. Criminals checking up on your worth to determine if you're a good target for a crime that could be anything from robbery to kidnapping your kid and demanding a ransom. Some people take this very seriously. I know one guy who has everything he owns registered to LLCs, limited liability companies, including his car, house, and credit cards. Nobody can tie him, the individual, to any assets. Aside from burying money, there is no total financial privacy because of computer records and software programs that can search a lot of them out in the world. Try to hide your money without getting your name into it. Get all your assets registered as belonging to an LLC. The Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999, sometimes referred to as GLB after its proponents, Graham, Leach, Bliley, was enacted to help prosecute people who steal identities, identity theft, and to prevent financial institutions from freely using customer data for anything outside authorized business. In order to help quell the identity theft epidemic, it's now a federal felony for anyone to obtain the personal financial information of other people through false pretenses, although in reality, it's still very easy to get someone else's credit report on the internet. The definition of financial institution includes such companies as banks, credit card issuers, credit bureaus, insurance companies, loan companies, and stock brokerage firms. Law enforcement agencies, financial institutions doing routine business, credit checks, insurance companies, investigating claims, and private investigators investigating delinquent child support are exempt from the law, but P.I.S. must still get a court order before they can do a bank investigation on anyone. A violation of the financial privacy law could result in both criminal and civil charges. The Financial Services Modernization Act of 1999 is Public Law 106-102. Another federal law, the Right to Financial Privacy Act at 12 U.S.C. 35, regulates the release of financial information from financial institutions to government agencies. Section 502 of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act/GLB prohibits a financial institution like a credit reporting agency from disclosing non-public information, such as an individual's social security number, to anyone without the individual's consent. People can still get credit reports on others as public information, but without their consent the SSN won't be on it. The GLB Act only prevents financial institutions from selling this information. Database vendors who used to buy this information before the Act went into effect are allowed to keep this information, and they can fill in the gaps like the SSN through other sources like voter registration records, so it's still quite easy to find an individual's SSN for whatever reason you might be interested in it for, often to do further public records checks on that individual. Banks keep big databases on account holders, especially the big ones. Find the smallest, most independent bank or credit union you can either in your home state or out of state. If you're opening an account out of state, use a passport for ID because they might not open your account if you show an out-of-state driver's license. You need a ghost address like using the services of a mail forwarder, in the yellow pages of the phone book. Don't use the bank's checks. Buy your own and get your name printed up in the corner without a street address or street number, just the name of the town. cftc.gov/cftc/cftcfinancialprivacy.hdm consumersunion.org/campaign/financialprivacynow/about.html en.wikipedia.org/wiki/financial_privacy privacy.ca.gov/financial/financial.htm privacyrights.org/financial.htm Privacy Laws Info. The Privacy Act of 1974 is made up of two major policies. 1. Any citizen can view and amend, if incorrect, any federally maintained information about him or herself that is kept in federal files in database form. 2. Federal agencies are legally required to follow specific security procedures when collecting information on people. The Privacy Act maintains that any records the federal government has on anyone cannot be released to anyone except pursuant to a written request or with the prior consent of the individual to whom the records pertain to. And they can only be sent to another agency if the agency uses them for authorized purposes. The Privacy Act also gives any individual the right to gain access to his records and demand that any errors be corrected in a timely manner. The exceptions are the CIA and other national security and criminal justice organizations can stop you from getting access to your own records, but they still must apply in writing if they want to see them. Other exceptions are certain tests or materials used when determining your ability for employment with the government. Federal agency employees who improperly release protected information could face criminal penalties, including a misdemeanor conviction and fines up to $5,000. If a government agency violates the Privacy Act, you can sue them civilly. A person outside of the government who uses a false pretense to obtain protected information could be convicted of a misdemeanor and fined up to $5,000. The United States Postal Service is not allowed to release information about its customers to anyone unless it's someone who has a postal box number and someone has to serve them legal papers. Then they will go to PS Form 1093. Application for post office box or caller service and give out the physical address of the person. If somebody changes their address, the post office is not allowed to tell the new address to people requesting it unless they're serving legal papers. But if you send a letter to the old address, if it's within a year of the address change, the letter will get to the new address. Commercial mail receiving agencies, such as mailboxes, etc., operate on the same rule. They collect customer information on Form 1583, application of delivery of mail through agent, but are not allowed to release it to anyone without a subpoena. The Privacy Act of 1974 is located at 5 U.S.C. 552A. The law regulating the release of information by the U.S. Postal Service is the Code of Federal Regulations, 39 CFR 265.6 ET Sec. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act at 20 U.S.C. 1232 grams protects schools that receive federal funding from releasing the students' grades at the risk of losing their funding, but they are allowed to release student directory information, which they routinely do, selling mailing lists of students' addresses, their major, what clubs they belong to, etc. The Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, 18 U.S.C. 2510, covers such things as eavesdropping, wiretapping, recording phone calls, surveillance, etc. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act requires financial institutions to notify customers of their privacy policies at least on an annual basis, and to allow consumers the opportunity to opt out of unsolicited offers from non-affiliated third-party companies before disclosing consumers' personal financial information to those companies. The Driver's Privacy Protection Act places limits on state departments of motor vehicles on the disclosure of individual records. The Health Information Portability and Accountability Act protects the security, privacy, and confidentiality of patient records and information. Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act limits the use and disclosure of education records by agencies and institutions that receive federal funding. law.cornell.edu/uscode, US code. rcfp.org/taping, electronic surveillance laws. Public Information Office. U.S. Department of Justice. Washington, D.C. 20530. USDOJ.gov. Booklet, Your Right to Federal Records, Questions and Answers on the Freedom of Information Act and the Privacy Act.